It's Oscar night 1977, and all the biggest stars in the galaxy are excited to see the biggest movie of all time take home some gold. But when the envelopes for Best Director and Best Picture were opened, the words George Lucas and Star Wars were not said. Instead, Woody Allen and Annie Hall were triumphantly announced. The biggest movie in the universe was destroyed by a low-budget romantic comedy about some girl who wears a tie. It was a funny little movie, and it was a funny little thing that this funny little man of the hour was nowhere to be found when Hollywood's unholy ceremony ritual called his name. This champion of a writer-director was not in Hollywood that night, but on the other side of the country in a small club in New York, blowing into his clarinet, playing a gig with his jazz buddies. You see, Woody Allen doesn't care about awards or nominations, even though he has the most ever. He just does not give a fuck about winning a godless golden idol, and believes that giving prizes to art is sillier than any comedy. Woody teaches us that life is funny, and life is tragic, and he is constantly working so he does not have to stop and think about the impending doom that faces all of mankind. Working on so many movies has also helped him distract himself from his personal problems, those scandalous controversies or those controversial scandals. But yeah, that stuff, it's pretty bad, y'all. His postmodern fairy tales blend comedy with philosophy, and the absurd with the existential, often adding a little magical realism or a little violent crime to spice things up. He brings his scripts to life with long, uninterrupted takes, along with some wonderful tracking shots, and some of the finest dialogue ever that can only be described as timeless. Many times, this director makes the choice to perfectly hold the master shot, and just lets the scene play out and breathe. The guy is just a non-stop movie-making, scandal-making machine. Seriously, for decades, he gave us a movie a year. From 1969 to 2023, we got a Woody movie. An interesting variety of films with the exact same font. But are the allegations against this man too horrific? Is it possible to separate the art from the artist? Is it still okay to call this man one of your favorite filmmakers? And is it okay to call this man your second favorite computer-animated ant from 1998? So yeah, what the fuck happened to Woody Allen?
Look, here's my point. If nothing lasts, why am I bothering to make films or do anything for that matter?
We enjoy your films, particularly the early funny ones.
But to truly understand what the happened to Woody Allen, we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when he was born on his birthday, 1935, the Bronx. As a teen, he would write jokes that ended up in the newspaper. This was a big deal at the time. Then he became a professional joke writer for other stand-up comedians, which led to young Woody joining the writing team of television's own Sid Caesar. This was the hippest comedy show at the time, and while there he made a name for himself, and eventually ended up with his very own stand-up career, appearing all over any and every TV special that needed a laugh. A movie producer saw Woody and was like, "Hey, you got moxie, kid. You got talent, you got spunk. You should use those spunky talents and write a screenplay with them." And that's exactly what Woody would do. This screenplay resulted in the huge comedy hit, What's New Pussycat, in 1965. Despite being a smash with audiences, Woody hated the final cut due to studio interference. It was then, in that moment right there, that this atheist swore to God that he would never write a script, that he wasn't allowed to direct or have complete creative control over again. So yeah, after spoofing James Bond in the first Casino Royale, Woody Allen would make his directorial debut with the films What's Up, Tiger Lily and Take the Money and Run. In What's Up, Tiger Lily, he would cleverly redub a Japanese spy movie into an absurd comedy about egg salad, and created the first widely released fake documentary, mockumentary, Take the Money and Run. This man was an actor, a writer, a director with total creative control, and he would hold on to that artistic freedom for over 50 years. You know, pretty much pumping out a movie every year from here on out. Studios would grant Woody Allen such freedom because his movies were clever, culturally significant, award-worthy, and most importantly, cheap. 1971 brought us Bananas. It is part political satire, part rom-com, part slapstick, and the title is fitting because it is B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Bananas. It provided a nice cinematic playground for this artist to have fun in, and he got really silly with it, which would continue with his next flick, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Too Afraid to Ask, in 1972. That same year came Play It Again Sam, which was not directed by Woody but is based on a play he wrote, showing off his love for Casablanca and Humphrey Bogart in his first collaboration with the lovely and talented Diane Keaton. He would continue his silliest streak with 1973's Sleeper, where Woody wakes up in the future and brings us some unique satire with a science fiction flair. I like to call it Woody Allen's Idiocracy, or Woody Allen's Futurama. Love and death are themes that are often found in the majority of the work of Woody, and it's also the title of his next feature film, Love and Death. Educated smart peoples can see that it is a brilliant satire of classic Russian literature. You know, like old books. He gets to show some love to filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, and Love and Death is considered to be his final really silly goofball flick. You know, early era Woody. Soon this silly little man would leave slapstick behind for something a little more serious, something a little more intellectual, some would say.
Does this come out from dry cleaning, or is this like gravy?
Before, Woody would look at movies as a vehicle that allowed him to tell his jokes and play out his gags. But his next film, and most to follow, would now focus on plot and character development. The jokes would just be a funny little cherry on top. This new artistic mindset resulted in his magnum opus masterpiece, 1977's Annie Hall. A film that would shake the foundations of not just filmmaking or comedy, but storytelling itself, and what it means to be a romantic leading man. As you know, this little movie that could took home all of the Oscars that it could. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and even an Oscar for his muse at the time, Diane Keaton. It's got everything everybody loves and hates about the work of Woody. Anybody who doubted his cinematic skills would forever shut the f*** up after Woody introduced us to Annie. He was no longer just a stand-up comic who happens to make movies, he was a filmmaker. And a damn fine one if I do say so myself, and myself it does say so. Next, Woody took a step far away from the genre of comedy and would make his first straight-up drama. But maybe it was a little too serious a little too soon. It was 1978's Interiors, and it has beautiful staging. One of those every frame of painting situations is going on here. But many critics felt that this Bergman movie mimic was too superficial. They seemed to think that Woody just was not ready for this type of material yet. But he would still be nominated for screenplay and director at the Oscars, so yeah, who cares? Mr. Allen ended out the 1970s with another masterpiece, Manhattan. It was a rare commercial success for the filmmaker that allowed him to bounce back in favor with some of his critics. Most everybody describes this Oscar-nominated film as a beautiful black and white love letter to New York, but it's also a creepy black and white love letter to underage girls. We got some foreshadowing here. Woody plays a 42-year-old who is dating a 17-year-old. Woody Allen actually wanted to destroy every copy of this film Manhattan, which is probably his best film, and maybe, just maybe, him wanting to destroy every copy of this film has something to do with this teenage love story subplot. But Woody says it's because he thought the film was lifeless and bland. But everyone else seems to disagree, because it's like always, number 1 or number 2 on all of the Woody lists of good ones. Then came the 1980s, and he gave us Stardust Memories, his own personal favorite film at that time. Even though many were rubbed the wrong way with this one, it seemed like he was criticizing his own fan base for liking his work, Joker folie à deux style. But that was not the case. It's simply a black and white ode to Federico Fellini, and an ode to filmmaking in general, and is not about his own career. I call it Woody Allen's 8.5. Then came an ode to Ingmar Bergman with A Midsummer Night's Sex Comedy. This financial flop was the first appearance of his muse and future ex-lover lady, the lovely and talented Mia Farrow, who would go on to make some children together and make 13 consecutive films together as well. So yeah, the next 13 movies I'm gonna talk about, Mia Farrow's in them. Next, Woody would get a wee bit experimental and create Zelig, a period piece mockumentary that takes place in the 20s and the 30s that uses real-life newsreel footage mixed with Woody's own original sauce. Followed by another Oscar-nominated beautiful black and white picture about show business called Broadway Danny Rose. Another year means another film, and Woody would make another film that celebrates film itself and the romantics who love to watch them. That film was called The Purple Rose of Cairo. An Oscar nomination came away with its magical screenplay, and Woody himself was actually pleased with how this one turned out. He is famously disappointed in most of his movies, but calls this one his favorite. At the time, actor Jeff Daniels literally walks off the silver screen and into reality and into our hearts. I call it Woody Allen's last action hero. Speaking of action heroes, Michael Caine and Diane Wiest, who both won Oscars, as did Woody's screenplay, again, in 1986's Hannah and Her Sisters. It's a smart, comedic drama about dysfunctional relationships with friends and family and lovers and God too. This classic is technically a Thanksgiving movie, and features many scenes that take place in Mia Farrow's actual apartment. Yet again, Woody proudly takes some inspiration from Bergman. Up next, Woody got nostalgic with 1987's Radio Days. This Oscar-nominated script looked back at his childhood and his love of radio, and it came out the same year he made the drama September. 1987 gave us two Woodies, and when it came to September, Woody would recast everyone except for his muses and completely reshoot the entire film after being disappointed with the first cut. And since it's so cheap to make a Woody movie, the studio didn't really mind too much, even though this one totally bombed at the box office. So by this time, many people were wondering, are audiences getting tired of Woody? Had he lost his touch? Had he peaked already? Well, they would only have to wait a year to find out, or a year after that, or even after that, and so on and so forth. Point being, if you make a movie a year for 50 years, some of them are not gonna be perfect. But it is impressive that even Woody's worst is still better than most. So yeah, there's that. 1988 gave us another drama about another woman with another woman. It is another Ingmar Bergman homage with another great actor, Gene Hackman. Then Woody would end out the 1980s by doing that anthology thing alongside Scorsese and Coppola, directing a segment in the film New York Stories. And unfortunately, this Scorsese-Coppola-Woody Allen movie is not as good as it sounds. But in that same year, 1988, he made one of his better movies. This one would absolutely perfectly blend comedy with crime in Crimes and Misdemeanors. It's a clever, well-made flick that asks moral questions about killing people, but it's still funny, receiving Oscar nominations for the script and Woody's direction, and then another Oscar nomination would come Woody's way next year for 1990's Alice. This was followed by another beautiful black and white picture, this one titled Shadows and Fog. And Shadows and Fog was his most expensive film at that time with $19 million. This mystery about catching a killer is an homage to German Expressionism, filmmakers like Fritz Lang. I call this one Woody Allen's M. By this time, Woody had done it all when it came to his craft. So next he set out to play around with his version of French New Wave films and cinema verite filmmaking. He would throw all the rules out the window. He didn't care about the lights. He didn't care about the blocking. He didn't care about the tripods. This time it was all handheld. And he had zero concern about continuity while editing. What resulted was Husbands and Wives in 1992, another personal favorite of Woody's. This artist was actually proud of his art. And of course, this film has a strong Oscar-nominated script about rocky relationships. Speaking of rocky relationships, Woody and Mia. It was on the final days of shooting Husbands and Wives that one of the biggest Hollywood scandals exploded. While on set, Woody received a phone call from his longtime romantic partner, Mia Farrow, confronting him with a disturbing discovery. Among Woody Allen's possessions, this poor woman found nude photos of her adopted daughter, whom Woody had raised since she was a child. His stepdaughter, basically. This would be beyond disturbing to anyone, and made us all rethink what we really thought of this man. The words sick and disturbing are often used to describe this relationship, even though Woody would claim that he was never a father figure to her. Woody and Mia did live in separate houses, and yeah, he was never around, but still, you don't do that. No. The news broke that Woody was having an affair and in love with the 21-year-old Soon Yi. And yeah, nobody would really be able to watch a Woody Allen film the same way ever again. And it would get worse later. But not before a nasty custody battle between Farrow and Allen, legally fighting over the other children. You know, the ones he didn't marry. And it was during this trial that Mia accused Woody of molesting their 7-year-old daughter, Dylan. Again, we have to say that Woody always denied these horrible accusations. He lost custody of the children, and the investigation included that no abuse took place, just some creepiness. But what do you think? What really happened here? Comment your comment in the comments. But Woody's alleged behavior never slowed down his work ethic and his creative flow. Even with a dark, scandalous cloud floating above him, he would continue to bless us with wonderful, thought-provoking little pictures. And after a while, people seemed to forget. That is, until #MeToo, of course. In which, funny enough, Woody Allen's own son, Ronan Farrow, would be a leading voice in exposing some of our favorite Hollywood predators. And yeah, nobody really cared that much until HBO decided to make a documentary on it in 2021. Well, we'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, with all the drama in his real life, I guess Woody wanted to crank out another comedy, so we got Manhattan Murder Mystery. So yeah, he was reunited with comedy, and he was reunited with Diane Keaton, who of course replaced Mia Farrow, because she obviously didn't want anything to do with Woody. More Oscar nominations that he didn't care about would come to this screenwriting director when he made yet another great film about what it means to be an artist, and what it means to be a gangsta, in Bullets Over Broadway. And a new muse of his, Mira Sorvino, would take home Oscar Gold in 1995's Mighty Aphrodite. It's a funny little tribute to the Greek tragedies of old, equipped with a narrating chorus and everything. After he kinda did the musical thing with Everybody Says I Love You, came Deconstructing Harry, yet another Oscar-nominated screenplay. This one is about an author with writer's block, and the characters from his stories. Look for a funny little tale with a literal out-of-focus Robin Williams. After a black and white look at celebrity in Celebrity, Woody would take a colorful look at the world of jazz in Sweet and Low Down, led by a wonderfully silly performance from Sean Penn. Obviously, Woody never slowed down, but his next few projects were mediocre Woody, which is still better than most, like Small Time Crooks, Curse of the Jade Scorpion, and Hollywood Ending. Although this is one of the few films that Woody Allen actually liked. After a Jason Biggs movie, Anything Else That Tarantino Loves, and a Will Ferrell movie, Melinda and Melinda, that nobody loves, Woody moved to Europe to escape the constraints of the American studio system and bring us some of his most fascinating work in years. We all thought that Woody needed New York to make good movies, but apparently not. Especially with 2005's Match Point. This sensual Hitchcockian thriller was Woody's first film shot in London, with his brand new muse Scarlett Johansson. Match Point was the first time that I personally realized that Woody Allen could handle a thriller. I honestly walked into the theater thinking I was about to see a romantic comedy about tennis, but no way. This one gets dark. This comedy master is also a master at suspense. Mr. Allen called Match Point his new favorite. And yes, this was a semi-comeback for Woody, getting another Oscar nomination that he didn't care about for his screenwriting skills. While on set of the drama Match Point, Woody noticed that Scarlett Johansson was funny. So Woody wanted to work with her again, and this time allowed her to get silly with 2006's Scoop. But yeah, it was right back to British drama with Cassandra's Dream the next year. Like Match Point, it's a well-crafted thriller.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
After 3 movies in a row set in the UK, Woody headed to Spain with 2008's Vicky Cristina Barcelona, and he got Penelope Cruz an Oscar this time. This one is one of his better works, which was immediately followed by one of his lesser works. Whatever works. I call it Woody Allen's Curb Your Enthusiasm, which sounds like it would be good, but it's not. After the forgettable You Will Meet a Tall Dark Stranger, Woody would bless the world with what may very well be his last great movie, Midnight in Paris. Owen Wilson is absolutely perfect as he stumbles over his lines like a Woody master, winning the Best Original Screenplay Oscar again for Woody. This magical, beautiful romance that spans time became his highest grossing picture ever, with 150 million worldwide. That is very impressive for a Woody Allen movie. In 2012, after Paris did him well, he went to Rome with the film To Rome with Love. And then he got another leading lady, another Oscar, when Cate Blanchett won for Blue Jasmine. And as of right now, this marks Woody's final Oscar nomination for one of his screenplays. So far. Not that he cares. And in all honesty, controversy aside, after this one, Blue Jasmine, I was pretty much done with Woody Allen movies. Sure, they had decent stories, but I felt like I had just seen enough. I went to the buffet that had been around for 50 years and I was frickin' full, you know? I knew what it was gonna taste like. But he still seemed to have some magic because he snagged up Emma Stone as his new muse. But you know what? I just wasn't interested in Magic in the Moonlight, Irrational Man, or Cafe Society, which is his most expensive film ever with a $30 million budget. This was followed by another period piece, the Coney Island drama Wonder Wheel, in 2017, which was maybe the last Woody Allen film that got any significant attention. And it was around this time that we would start talking about Woody's bizarre and possibly disturbing personal life. Yeah, that stuff was surfacing again. Brought on by the hashtag #MeToo movement, Woody Allen's daughter, Dylan Farrow, began retelling her story of the alleged abuse at the hands of her father. Suddenly, it was trending to turn your back on Woody Allen, and many celebrities shared their regret when it came to working with him, even though all of this information was out there since the 90s. But yeah, the backlash was back and it was stronger than ever. So, for the first time ever, there was a year without a Woody Allen movie. And due to the scandal, his Timothy movie A Rainy Day in New York was shelved. This was soon followed by Amazon dropping his Miley Cyrus miniseries, A Crisis in 6 Scenes. And all major book publishers wanted nothing to do with his new autobiography. This was in addition to his other new film, Rifkin's Festival, struggling to find distribution. So yeah, for the first time in decades, he didn't make a movie. But this hiatus would only last a couple of years. You know, being canceled and COVID prevented Woody from making anything in 2021 and 2022, but 2023 brought us his 50th feature, Coup de Chance, a romantic thriller set in France with French actors speaking French. And this one was banned from Cannes due to the allegations. Cancelled. But yeah, a French film, and he's almost 90 and still trying new things as a filmmaker? I gotta respect that, I guess. I'm not gonna watch the movie though, but you know. So yeah, after dozens and dozens of films, he is bound to repeat himself every now and then, but he was always producing quality work. His questionable love life has tarnished his legacy, no doubt, but that legacy is so strong that it seems that no scandal can erase the truth, and the truth is that he changed the way we tell jokes and the way we make movies. His influence can be felt every time a funny person is trusted with a project, every time a stand-up comedian has to mold their material into something cinematic. But yeah, of course, the final scene of Annie Hall says it best. As Woody is standing alone on the streets of the city that he holds so dear, a nice little narration of Woody reciting an old joke can be heard. It goes a little something like, "Hey Doc, my brother's crazy. He thinks he's a chicken." Then the doc says, "Why don't you turn him in?" Then the guy says, "I would, but I need the eggs." In the film, he is talking about the complexity of relationships, but maybe, just maybe, he's also talking about movies. And yeah, most of us need the movies. We need the eggs. And that allows many of us to ignore the crimes and misdemeanors and the rumors and the allegations of our favorite artists and scholars. And if you can, that's great. Good for you. It's good to like good movies. A good movie is a good movie, even if a bad person made it, right? But if you can't take it anymore, if this man's amazing filmography and weird little face are too much for you, and you've decided to be your own Annie Hall and officially break up with Woody Allen, well, that's fine too.